I'm Lori Casto. I'm an RN. I'm a certified forensic nurse, and I specialize in Alzheimer's and dementia. I have been doing this about 13 years. I've worked in large facilities that we would have up to 20 to 24 people with Alzheimer's, with every type of Alzheimer's disease to all the related dementias like frontal temporal lobe dementias, Lewy body dementias, vascular dementias, all the way to working in a small facility where there's a much higher level of care, all the way to working with Asif and doing residential care homes where we would only have 3 to 4 patients, but a very high level one-on-one care with Alzheimer's. So to have discussions about detecting this wicked disease early on and using AI to do so, it's very exciting, and I'm glad we're here to have the discussion.
On AyAyAyAi podcast. Woo!
Welcome, Lori. It's great. It's always a good moment where we can, at least in our podcast, where we can have an author and then also have somebody that's broken the mold and gone from a nursing profession or a medical profession to something like, and this is new to me, a nursing. You said you're a certified forensic nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and
You've probably heard
that
it like on CSI or something, right?
yeah, and now you're breaking new ground with AI, and I'd like to learn more about how that works or how you apply your data or how you gather data. But again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm sure you're going to tell us how it all works. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm not using it yet. I'm here to talk about early detection and how I think that it will be huge to us in the future. I think it's time for us all to have the conversation. I think if you see this, on TikTok all the way to Apple News and is talking about AI, I think we need to all stop and pay attention. We need to stop and pay attention. I want to talk about early detection. If we don't do something about Alzheimer's by the year 2050, it's gonna ruin our healthcare system. It's going to break our healthcare system. I'm not going to get into all the numbers. I'm not going to get into the statistics. You can get an Alzheimer's Association and get all of those stats. I'm not here to talk about that. I am here to talk about, in the simplest form, what I think all of us need to understand about detection and Alzheimer's and why it's so incredibly important. So let's say that you have a cough and you're kind of short of breath. You go to the doctor, he's going to say, oh well, let's do a chest x-ray. Chest x-ray is going to kind of have a shadow. From there you're going to go, may have biopsy. So hey, you've got lung cancer. That is stage 1, right? So but you're going to have, you have the cough, you had the chest x-ray to give you that information, you have the shortness of breath, you go to a professional, you have those things. Well, when you look at the 7 stages of Alzheimer's, stage 1 is nothing. Look it up. Stage 1 is nothing. There are zero symptoms. We only know that your neurons are having some trouble. Neurons are having trouble sweeping away those tau plaques and the amyloid plaques. We can have another podcast about that. I don't want to get clinical today. I want to get people excited about the future of AI and early detection of Alzheimer's. But we know the neurons aren't working. But can you imagine? You think about breast cancer all the way, anything, COPD, congestive heart failure. You have stages, right? Of all of our disease processes, we have stages. Stage 1 of Alzheimer's is nothing. It's nothing. There's zero. So if you have a doctor at best, with everything, all of his experience and CTs and MRIs and on and on and on, his diagnosis prediction is about 70%. So when you look at AI and the numbers are coming out of early detection of AD, or Alzheimer's disease, at 90%, 92%, sometimes up to 5 years beforehand, this is very exciting. This is very, very exciting.
And the word early detection, it resonates not just in Alzheimer, AI, but with all AIs, right?
Yes.
All AIs that are able to detect what we cannot detect with our human insight, right? As in human 5 senses, well, let the AI augment us for that early detection, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
what is an early detection? A supply chain disruption, a sort of like a logistical nightmare that you never prepared for, or finding insights about the amount of data that you collect and say like, okay, we tried millions of data. These are all average, except for this
Mhm.
one here. This is an outlier. How
Mhm.
do we take action on this one rather than to say, let's take action on a million different things we are collecting data for, right?
Right. Right.
Um, so,
But the idea too that AI is working on speech.
oh, let's talk about that, right?
I mean, the idea that it's taking it's like just a simple thing, like I want you to describe a picture, and all three of us may be watching this, but AI is picking up on the smallest nuances where there was a hesitation, there was a little bit of a hesitation, and able to
Mhm.
take the speech and say, guess what? I'm pretty sure they have Alzheimer's. Pretty sure, 92% sure. This is incredible. This is
With
exciting.
speech.
In speech. Yes.
What?
It's incredible. So I think the other thing we have to all talk about is why is this important? Why is this important? It's important because, like, for example, if I have a family coming in and they're saying, the doctor's running a CAT scan, they're running a PET scan, they're running MRIs, all of these things. I want to make this very clear. I'm not talking about frontotemporal lobe dementia right now. I'm not talking about vascular dementia, and I'm not talking about Lewy body. Those are different conversations that we can have.
Mhm.
The data that I've been researching some is on Alzheimer's disease, AD, and AI. Okay. So I want to make this really clear for anybody, clinical people watching. Like, we can detect, frontal temporal lobe with a CT with and without contrast. I get that. But you can't do it for AD. You can't do it with Alzheimer's disease. So when a doctor's ordering all those tests, really what he's doing, he's just ruling out everything else. So when the family sometimes they think that they're doing all this to diagnose Alzheimer's, what they're really doing is ruling out a stroke, ruling
Mhm.
out a brain bleed, ruling out an aneurysm. You see what I'm saying? And so it's really not giving a diagnosis for it. So let's go back to the earlier subject. Why is it important? Because we know that Aricept and Namenda, which are the only two truly effective medications we have at this point to help with the progression of the disease. But what it does, it's very successful at keeping you status quo. It will keep you at your current status longer.
Mhm.
Well, this is very, very important because if you look at stage 1 of Alzheimer's, what did I say? 0 symptoms, correct? Stage 2, do you know the only thing that's different in stage 2 is some unknown forgetfulness? I don't remember my husband's name sometimes. I got married, my name is Casto now. I still call myself Janacek all the time. That's forgetting, correct? I mean, don't you 2 have examples of you just forgot, right? So stage 2 is only some forgetfulness. That's
Mhm.
stage 2. So it's not till stage 3 and 4 that we're like, "Whoa, something is going on. Something's happening at this point." Then you're going to the doctor, then you're seeking, some professional help. So can you imagine that we're having a conversation now that AI can predict Alzheimer's disease perhaps 5 years beforehand with 90 to 92% accuracy? This is incredible. It is incredible.
Well, this usually doesn't happen very frequently in this podcast. Um, I'm always ready with a response somewhere. I'm
Mhm.
lost for word at this point. This is incredible. This is like, okay, look, I think before the podcast started, we wanted to bring the awareness to this, right? You mentioned
Yes.
some future vulnerabilities we have in our national healthcare systems, and our ability to address this issue early on will make an impact on how we do healthcare in 2050, right? Um,
Yeah. I think, what the 3 of us are talking about today, we're gonna see a huge impact in the next 3 to 4 years. I mean, in the next 3 to 4 years, I think we're gonna I think it's gonna change the way, especially physicians in larger towns, let me say this, in our larger areas, are going to be able to diagnose the disease.
so, what are some of the contributing factors to the disease? Like, is there a way to say, like, okay, who can have it? Who is more exposed to it?
It's a very, very good question. Another reason why we're excited about AI, because so I'm getting back to why is it important to diagnose early? Because we're already at stage 3 and 4 before we even notice any differences. And I already said there's only 2 medications. And what did the medications do? They can they help the neurons? Can they is there anything they can do to change the progression of the disease? Can they change those taus and plaques and amyloids that are being developed? No. Can it help with the shrinking of the brain? No. But it can keep, what we do know is it keeps them status quo longer. We're able to kind of slow down the disease progression. So can you imagine how we want to be able to be diagnosed at stage 3 and 4 versus 5 and 6, right? I mean, that makes sense to anybody, right? We want to be diagnosed very early. So right now we're diagnosing at stage 3 and 4, but you can imagine if we're diagnosed at stage 1, which is impossible right now. So back to your question, what are some contributing factors to, hey, Lori, I was in the military. That really bothers me at what I was exposed to. Could that be a contributing factor? Could, for example, having a stroke be a contributing factor? What if I was an alcoholic? What if I drank too much? What if my mother had Alzheimer's? These are all great questions. Can all these be contributing factors? They can. But do you know, back to why I get excited about AI and the diagnosis and the, being able the early detection. If you look, and I'm going to say this one more time, I'm not talking about frontal temporal lobe. I'm not talking about vascular dementia, Lewy body, all of that's coming out. I'm talking about Alzheimer's disease. If you look at what is the number one contributing factor that we know is, hey, we need to, pay attention at this point, it's age. That's it. That's it. After 65 years old, from 65 to 70, your chance doubles of getting it. From 70 to 75, doubles again. 75 to 80, doubles again. So the number one contributing factor is age. That's it. So if we have our, the AI that is able to come in with speech, or we're developing, or they're, of course, taking all these MRIs, thousands and thousands and thousands, and, the algorithms that it's doing, taking the speech, taking all that, and we're able to say, look, we are detecting this up to 5 years before anybody else knows it. This is incredible because the only thing we have, Asif, is in Lucky, the only thing we have our known contributing factor, our known is age. That's it. That's it.
So I'm curious that in troubleshooting things, and you always want to go down to the lowest levels that you can find, and I'm not an expert, but it just seems like what you've described to me almost sounds like it could almost be genetic. And I'm not a doctor or anything, but
It
does
could
that
be.
not carry?
It could be, but also it couldn't be. There is the answer. You can have what we call a familial gene. And I see that
Mhm.
all the time. My mother had it, my aunt had it, my grandmother had it, on and on and on and on. But I have people all the time that nobody in their entire family had it. It also has nothing to do with if you do crossword puzzles. I've literally taken care of senators, congressmen, and rocket scientists, all the way to farmers and ranchers. So I have people all the time. Could it be what the word we use, Lucky, is called familial,
Mhm.
family gene? Could that be
Mhm.
part of it? Yes. But I have to stress huge, not always at all, at all, at all. The only thing that we know, if you look at the research on AD, on Alzheimer's disease, it's age. It's age. So this is why it gets real exciting if we're talking about, the future of AI and what it's in medicine. Like today we're talking about Alzheimer's disease. We need to look at maybe another disease process later. This is just what's passionate to me because I see people come in all the time. They've been going to a doctor. I can look at them in 5 minutes and tell what's going on. In 5 minutes, I can tell. And if they were already on Alzheimer's dementia, what could we do? What did we say? We could slow the process, keep them status quo longer. We could have done that. I have doctors all the time that don't do it, all the time. But let's just be honest. What's the average time that a doctor spends with a patient? I think it's 12 minutes or something like that. So sometimes it's very hard to do. AI, you can't fool you can't fool AI. Can't fool it.
Mhm.
Oh, so all right, all right, all right. So this is what I'm gonna do, right? I'm gonna not talk about things that I cannot talk about. You I really cannot talk about this topic, and it's so important because look, you don't feel human when you don't have a memory and your imagination is stuck in a rut, right?
Absolutely.
Because you
Absolutely.
want to feel like a human, so you miss out on that humanity of yourself. So your self-esteem, your ability to even try harder, or your ability to get back in life, even as you realize that you have Alzheimer or dementia. I
True.
bet nobody wants to go through that, and nobody should. So if, as a humanity, if we are not contributing to, help another person to feel human, I think we're losing ourselves there. So it's not an impact just on an Alzheimer or dementia patient. It's everybody that is around this disease that we you know what, let's not even finish that thought because it's just so sad, right?
No, no, I think it's a great thought because the fact is, the reason why this podcast is important is because so many of us are affected by it. Yeah, it's my career, but don't most people know somebody that has it? Either at your church or your family or a relative or something, and y'all have seen the numbers. That the future of this is staggering. What is something like 1 in 5 or something? Don't hold me to that number, but it is staggering. And so I think it is important to get passionate about it. I think it is important to say, hey, it could happen to me. I think it is very important to say, hey, it could happen to my family member. And, can you imagine if we had a way and we really are looking at the future where we might be able to diagnose this, earlier and keep somebody what? Status quo longer, right? I mean, this is, I think it's okay to be passionate. It's a wicked disease. And I know of no other disease that affects the family more than it does the patient. You know, Hasif, you and I are doing a residential care home together for high-end Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. They're going to have the best care. We are going to be loving, kind. It's very important to understand as the disease progresses, they go back in time. Hear this one more time. As the disease progresses, they go back in time. So when they come to me, are they, able to walk? Are they sexually flirtatious? Do they not want to take a bath? They don't want to take a shower. I'm not going to take my meds, right? So as the disease progresses, they go back in time. So are they 16 years old? Are they 9 years old? We get them all the way down to where they're 3 and 4 and 2, where we have to feed them, right? I mean, all the way down.
Well, look,
Yeah.
if I ever get dementia and I'm gonna look for you, I want to get stuck at like 18.
Hey, hey, you know what? This ought to be another podcast because you know who my favorite Alzheimer's patients to take care of in all these years, hands down, is a veteran. Hands
Mhm.
down. They are sexually flirtatious. But like, for example, if you're going to go in, like, let's say I have a lady and I don't know, let's just say they're both at stage 4. Let's just keep it simple, stupid. Well, you're going to go into them and go, good morning, and your voice needs to be like this. It's time to get up. A veteran, now what do you think they're going to do if I do that to them? I have to go in and say, get your ass up. Let's
Yeah.
go. No, you're getting in the shower today. I don't care that you're looking at my boobs. I could care less, but you're getting in the shower today. I mean, this is what starts happening. And then they respond to that, because it's like I'm dealing with a 16-year-old. And my veterans are absolutely the most fun with Alzheimer's. And that is a true story. That can be another podcast. Trust me, another podcast on
Mhm.
Alzheimer's and veterans. Seriously.
Yeah,
They're all
we
favorite.
we on this show, we love our veterans. I have
Yes,
a
we
special
do.
dedication to veterans, and Asif, he knows how we work with veterans, and I work for the VA, so I understand. They're
Yes.
and it's not because okay, for many reasons they've done things that some don't, and they step up when others don't. But the other part is you're absolutely right. They're so much fun. My neighbor, I'll give you an example. His
Uh-huh.
name was Dave Littrell, Dave
Uh-huh.
Literal, and he was my neighbor for about 11 years. He ended
Uh-huh.
up passing away from the flu before the COVID and everything, but
Oh, wow.
I learned so much from him. He had a snappy, pop back answer, and the thing is, you don't get that from anyone. You get that from life, and
Yes,
veterans are full of it. So
I agree.
I echo
Very
what
much agree.
your sentiment. They make
Very
life
much agree.
interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was like, yeah, they're just the best. But
Mhm.
and like I said, as the disease progresses, they go back in time. So this is real important for us all to understand because communication is going to be different for a veteran that I think he's like 14, 15, 16 versus somebody who is 9 and 8. Correct? I mean, you're going to handle everything different. Medications are going to be different. We could go on and on. Um, but it's crucial to their well-being and communication and all of that. So once again, this gets back to early detection, which the fact is with Alzheimer's disease, we don't really have early detection. Like we just don't. We have that gut. We have the gut. Like I have the gut, that I've just been around
Mhm.
enough that I can pick up on it. Doctors are the same way, by the way. Doctors are the exact same way. But we don't have a lot else, and that's a fact. That's a
So,
fact.
so let me be there and take my uh, gut instinct, take that gut instinct and make a uh, maybe a smart prediction. Let's just call it a smart prediction. I don't want to sound dumb here. If we were to, like you said, go out and look for Alzheimer patients,
Uh-huh.
future Alzheimer patients, we will do somewhat of a good job. Maybe out of a million, we'll catch 10, 20. That's my
Mhm,
assumption.
mhm,
But if every patient was in a room talking to a doctor, and the doctor has 12 minutes to learn all their histories, learn all the things that the doctors need to know in order to detect or diagnose an issue.
mhm.
That is far more than Alzheimer, right? The current day situation or today's
Mhm.
problem that the patient have.
Right.
So as an AI in every room, now mind you, I'm talking about a privacy violation. There's a little bit of privacy conditions that we have to discuss here. But if the privacy wasn't a concern, every
Okay.
doctor's room had an AI. And guess what that
Right.
AI was professional in? It took notes for the doctor. It
True.
read the patient's medical history before the patient even walked into the room. It
Good.
figures out how the patient walked in because the hip movement was a little off. And then as the patient started speaking for 12 minutes, AI
Good.
is either recording that or
Good point.
instantaneously diagnosing this person with all sorts of
Good point.
voice-based detection, as in, um, uh, as your word travels through your diaphragm up to your mouth and then comes out of your mouth, the vibration of it gives away so many other disease, right? As in, it
Right.
tells you what sort of problems that you might have between your gut and your neck and your mouth, right?
Which is
Um,
fascinating.
which is fascinating. So
It is
AI are
fascinating.
already doing that. Now all we have to do is say, look, this AI take notes. This AI does this great reading of your medical electronic record history,
Mhm.
and it does a great job of assisting the doctor with what the doctor might not be able to detect, which is all these other things that are voice AI based. And one of
Mhm.
those voice AI based is Alzheimer detection, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And you are catching this your let's call it early detection,
Yeah.
early detecting it, so
Mhm.
that way you're knocking off a checkbox saying, okay, they have been tested for Alzheimer this time, and then as the next time they come, we compare and contrast that to say, like, has anything changed since last time the AI has seen the patient along with the doctor, right?
Right.
So I'm running through the scenario long and wide just to say, if we are engaging in AI machine learning for Alzheimer, I think
Mhm.
we have to think about it like an integrated, interoperable solution, right? As
Mhm.
in, like you said, a doctor sends a patient for CT scan to rule out all the things except for Alzheimer, because their CT scan is not really for the Alzheimer, right? So
Right.
for
Right. It can pick up on the cellular level. But yes, that's right.
right, you knock out all the other, rule out all the other possibilities. Well, how about a system that detects all of it, right? Is able to maintain.
Yeah.
Again, I want to go back to the privacy side of things. Isn't that is the biggest chokehold we have right now? Is
Mhm.
because we don't really well look. The big clinical services and healthcare systems are already recording patients' information and taking notes as patients are speaking.
Mhm.
But then for note taking purposes for very limited reasons. And I think we can do more. And I think that more needs to happen in the near future rather than say like we'll get to it when there's a breakthrough and the cost of the ability to do these kind of services comes down in price, right?
And I have
I
to
think we
also
need a
not
big investment on this topic here.
well, and not to I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to kind of jump in with what you said, because what you're talking about going in for an assessment. That's what you're saying. We're going to go in for an assessment, right? Nurses assess, doctors assess, and then we implement our, our care plan, basically. I mean, that's basically the basis for all of us, what we do. But here's another thing about Alzheimer's we have to talk about, to go back to your point, is that it is a very shameful disease for families. It's extremely shameful. So when husband and wives come in, rarely is the truth told in that room in the beginning. Rarely. This is, reason why one of my book was pretty successful, because it's very shameful to say my wife, who, always did her makeup and always did her hair and always dressed impeccably, now there's makeup all over her shirt. She'll eat and still have food all over her mouth. I can't get her to take a shower. I mean, so the husband usually is very much hiding this from the physician, because they're very ashamed to go in and say, this is what's going on. Even more so with telling your children that this is what your mother's doing. She's walking out naked in the street. No, but you don't want to say that. You want to protect them. Going back to your point, I see this is very important, that you would have another way to assess that patient when maybe everything that's going on isn't really being told up front. To go into your point, I'm agreeing with you 100%. It's another way to gather information on the assessment without relying on a family who looks at this as a very they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed, so they're not really talking about everything that's going on. Is it still there? Okay, yeah. So I love the idea of thinking we have another assessment tool, and I think
Yeah.
that's what we can do.
So can you just, I'd like to understand better who broke or discovered, or what research grant or what school university figured out that your speech would give away the fact that, how was that discovered that Alzheimer's related
Yeah, I've got it.
disease
I don't
was
know
could
off the top of my head, but I
detected?
believe, let's see, if wasn't that one, there was one done in Florida, there was one done in Pennsylvania. There's several, but I think the main one that I was excited about was in Florida, Lucky, but just off the top of my
Mhm.
head, I couldn't tell you. Um, but
Okay.
but what is interesting, these universities, they're getting the same results. They're getting the
Mhm.
same results. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's incredible.
I think the human anatomy is the might be a good rundown opportunity to have a good rundown of human anatomy, right? So if I may, like, let me take a shot at my limited education. I think having very little education is very dangerous, and when it's coming out of my mouth, it's even more dangerous. So
Yeah.
I just want to have everybody brace this, right? So I think
Just
you mentioned that your brain has lots of processing that it goes through, right? So it's
Mhm.
kind of like a bush having lots of shaking. And then when it shakes, it drops lots of leaves, it drops a whole lot of trash onto the surface, right, from the bush.
Mhm.
And what happens is the human spine has a spinal fluid that hits the back of the brain. And every night when you're sleeping, as you're sleeping, the spinal fluid hits the back of the brain to create a chemical reaction that works as a vacuum cleaner for your brain. As in, it cleans up your brain. Let me get the word right. It's plaque, right? The plaque
Back
that builds
is
up in your brain, right?
Yes, yeah, it's the neurons, and
It's,
then
yeah,
the neurons are gonna break down, and then they have the little,
Mhm.
what we're gonna call them little vacuum cleaners.
right,
They're
right.
gonna, take care of that. You're 100% right.
Right.
But with
And as this flushing is happening, so look, I'm not trying to make a sleep
oh,
case
you're
out of
exactly
this,
right.
but if
Right.
you don't get enough sleep, your brain goes through that process of like, well, yesterday's dust is still here and it's building up for the last 30 days because your sleep cycle has been completely off. So when you look tired or when you're not functioning properly for the next 30 days, you know why? Because you have a lot of dust building up in the back of your brain. And
Mhm.
and the spinal fluid I want to, reiterate furthermore is that your body starts functioning differently because the spinal fluid is what is communicating to your whole subconscious mind, right? To to
Mhm.
to provide it with information as in just like a computer is providing you with information as you sit in front of the computer, your
Mhm.
brain is consistently is being provided with information about your whole body. But now I'll give you actually, let me get a number in there, right?
Okay.
The number breakdown, if it was a computer, if you're considering your brain a computer, it was processing about 11 million bits of data per second.
Mhm. Okay. I can
Insanely,
break
insanely big number, right?
that, right.
And you do that every second for your whole life. So 11 million bits per second that you're collecting, you would wish there was a database equivalent to that brain somewhere out in the world. There isn't one. So
Right.
the human brain, no matter how dim a person is, human brain is functioning to the level that no system in the planet can compare to that, right? And the
Right.
amount of energy it doesn't consume, right? It consumes very little. It consumes about 20% of your calorie intake, right? All your energy, about 20% of it to operate.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
for a very small muscle, it takes up massive amount of energy from your body, but a no database system that can, be generated next to an electrical plant. And no matter how much electrical plant you build to feed a supercomputer to function like human brain, it wouldn't function, right? So I'm praising on and on about our brain, and because the thought process behind it is I want people to appreciate the fact that when you don't have a control over your brain or part of your body, like as
Yeah.
in say for example, there are some disease that called lock-in syndrome where you're
Mhm.
locked in, where you have no control over your body, your brain is running like crazy horse, yet
Mhm.
you have no control over any part of your body except for your eye movement, right?
Right.
So your body locks in, or say some part of your body is just paralyzed, and your brain is not able to communicate with that part of the body in
Sure.
order to have those muscles reactivate.
Sure.
We want the audience to think about these little facts and details and say, "Wow, what a well polished machine we
Yeah.
operate on a daily basis." Yet all the concerns we have about uh, everything in the world is not really concerning us. It's really concerning somebody else somewhere out there in a news cycle, right? 24-hour news cycle.
Sure.
I want people to appreciate that. And once you have
Mhm.
this appreciation, I want you to start thinking how it is that we can augment our this body, this brain, all the decisions making we have in this body, augmented by an AI machine learning. Because when we think about AI machine learning, again, in the news cycle, you will see, oh, this AI is out here to destroy you. This AI is coming down from Skynet with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Will Smith punching people around and, throwing robots in the air.
Slapping.
Kinds
Will
of
Smith
dystopian.
doesn't patch. Will Smith doesn't punch. He slaps. No.
Will Smith slaps, Arnold Schwarzenegger shoots the shotguns, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going on and on about this to get to a point that first you appreciate your body. Second of all, you have to start thinking how do you augment this body using AI machine learning. So that way, you live longer, but you live a better life. You live a happier life. That AI is not to come and destroy anything or take anything away from you, but rather to augment and assist you, not just mentally, but physically as well. And
No,
we are seeing a lot of the physical movement. What we want to do is get to the mental health movement, as in like where you're able to find assistance from an AI machine learning that is not a replacement of human relationship, but as in it's able to provide you with better decision making capability, right?
no, I
Better
completely agree.
augmenting your decision
I
making.
completely agree. And I wish that we could have a true conversation about, I would highly recommend everybody getting more sleep. I would highly recommend, a low fat diet. I would highly recommend that we all watch Jeopardy every night. I would highly, all these things. But the fact remains, we do not know why I might have the deterioration of those neurons and you and Lucky won't. We don't know why.
Mhm.
I wish that I could say a healthy life, let's promote a healthy lifestyle. Let's do this, let's do that. But the fact is, when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, we can have the conversation. We can say, yeah, I think we need to all live a healthier life, whatever. But honestly, we don't know why my neurons are going to start deteriorating, but maybe the two of you don't. I mean, we don't know why. And this is why we have to have the conversation about AI. And if you like, once again, if you see the articles, don't be scared of it. let's have the conversation. Let's all get a little bit more educated and be open to the idea. Let's all be open to the idea because I got to tell you, most people I know hate change. I'm probably one of them. Honestly, I don't like change. I still hate email. I hate email. Right? I mean, I just do. You know, I,
Go ahead, email.
so you're talking to someone who I thought email was a fad when it came out, right? So if there's anybody, so here I am, a clinician. I've been doing this for a long time. If I'm getting excited about us having this conversation, we need to all get excited about at least having the conversation. And I think we need to do it again, get somebody else in here and keep the conversation going and to where people don't mind the change, aren't scared of the word, don't feel like it's coming down from Mars. And, I think it's very, very important at this point. I'm very excited about it. I get very excited about it. I'm excited about the conversation, as you can tell. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a game changer in the next few years. I really do.
Any thoughts, Lucky?
No, well, several thoughts when you guys were talking about how the process of how you not getting enough sleep and plaque and the spinal fluid going through and purging or not being able to clean the plaque out of the neurons or basically whatever the brain is trying to shed is not obviously not being cleaned correctly. I have
Mhm,
this thing that that I bring up with my students. Okay,
mhm.
so anytime I teach, I say, look, guys, please after my session, don't go to sleep because you can't tell your brain what it wants to keep and what it's going to purge. And if you go to sleep immediate after my training, that's going to happen. Your brain's going to decide to purge something, and
Oh, wow.
you have no control over that. I listened to, is it
I love
Andrew Huberman? Is Andrew Huberman, the brain doctor, the lab? He's a great guy to listen to.
that. Okay.
And he gives a lot of information, and sometimes you're like, wow, that is just interesting. That's one thing that I picked up. So I use it, and it's true, for the most part. For my, it's
I
you
love
don't know
that.
what you lose. And so I tell them, look, after my class, don't go to sleep,
I love
don't
it.
think about my class, but go talk to your family, hug your dog, do something that takes you out of the state of mind of stress,
Yeah.
and then you remember the stuff as you want to access it. But if you go to sleep, you're going to lose something and you don't know what you lose. So let's not go to sleep after Lucky's lessons. And so
I love
that
that.
reminded me of that. Yeah, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's there's a lot of value in what you just said. You taught me something. I think I'll do it with when I teach.
Yeah, or when you're trying to learn something, you try to focus in and I try to implement these things and I see that it works. But moving into the dementia area, it's one of those things that that there's a huge problem, like you said.
Mhm, mhm,
And I've done a little bit of work working for the VA where I put together others. They weren't AI, but they were analytical. You put together databases and content or data that would speak to veterans' disease states,
oh, wow.
and and so you could
Uh-huh,
take and assign prescriptions to disease states, and so I created what they call a data warehouse. Now, without
mhm,
it, without looking into that, I just noticed that I learned so much more. And one is like, say for example, if you have MIs and then
mhm,
you're a diabetic,
mhm,
then you're more open or susceptible to other things. So that being said,
mhm.
to me, I keep thinking,
Agree.
is there anything else like diabetes that adds to dementia or Alzheimer's that you can check the box? Okay, diabetes, you're more apt, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. It just seems like I could make matches and make combinations of
Uh-huh,
and you said there's not any one thing that you can hone in on, but
right.
do people with diabetes tend to have more problems?
I mean, it's a very good question. So one of the things that we are looking at too, even when we're talking about the AI gathering the data, one of the things that AI is very good at doing is also looking at inflammation. So when it's
Mhm.
looking at all the CTs and all the MRIs and gathering thousands and the algorithms, whatever, one of the things that it's looking at is inflammation. So having said that, I have a lot of people that they were heavy, heavy drinkers. They were drug users. And I don't mean just necessarily like I don't mean like cocaine necessarily. I mean, someone that took Ativan for years or Xanax for years, those type of, I mean, like, on the verge of abusing. I mean, we're talking about years and years and years. I see a lot of my veterans, and but it's more of a vascular dementia. And you can actually do MRIs, CTs, but mainly the MRIs, and see the little ischemic spots in their brains. You can see them on a MRI. Frontotemporal lobe dementia, that's very prominent a lot in more so in women, but right now I'm so proud of Bruce Willis's wife that's making this coming to the forefront and to the public with frontotemporal dementia. It can be diagnosed with and without contrast with a CT, a frontal temporal lobe CT with and without contrast. And there's a lot of talk about that. There's some about women that took benzos for years and years. There's drinking, some diabetics because of the ischemia. So when you're talking about MIs, which we're saying a heart attack, which that's lack of oxygen to the heart, right? Well, those ischemic plaques start popping up. So if you're talking about diabetes, you're talking about heart disease, talking about ischemia, you start seeing those ischemic plaques and vascular dementia. So you're very, very right. There are some of those that, you can kind of look and tell,
Yeah.
I'll have families call me and say, well, dad's been diagnosed with vascular dementia. Now, Lori, I'm going to tell you, he was an alcoholic my whole life. I get that a lot. Not that they are anymore, but they were for many years, So you have a very, very valid point. When you look at like diabetes, MI, ischemic, then you can look at your vascular dementias and some of those. Lewy body's a little bit different, but frontal temporal lobe's a little bit different. But yes, you're exactly right. There's some connections there. Definitely.
Wow.
Alzheimer's is different though.
Yeah, that's amazing. That you're bringing this knowledge to all of us. I would have never have known so much about Alzheimer's or dementia, and I'm a little intimidated. I'm scared because I don't think I was like. Sometimes I'm like, dog.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Wait a minute.
Sure. Sure.
Or is it
So,
stress?
like, for example, do y'all ever watch Jeopardy and the answer and it doesn't come, but the answer, and then they say King Henry VIII, and you're like, God, I knew it was King Henry VIII, or they say Mick Jagger, and you just couldn't think of Mick Jagger, right? But
Right.
that's what, when you start, can you imagine with Alzheimer's, it's always there, it's always there, it's almost there, it's almost there. Somebody walks in, you think you know him, you're pretty sure you know him, you probably should know him, but you don't know him. You're perpetually in that state. I mean, can you imagine? And it's a wicked disease. But to my point earlier, when I was talking about we're doing residential care homes for veterans and Alzheimer's dementia, to do very high level of care. I want to say this one more time. I know of no other disease where the disease process is harder on the families than it is to the patient.
Right.
Because if we get them, properly cared for, we keep them in the right, safe, serene, loving, nurturing environment, they actually do fine. They really do. Who it's brutal on is, the wife that comes in at 48 years, and the husband has no idea who she is. But there's something there. Like he kind of thinks he should know her. He probably should know her, but he doesn't quite know her. I mean, because I got to tell you, when I watch Jeopardy and I can't think of something, and then they say it, I just start screaming. It drives me crazy because So I think about that a lot because that's part of the brutality of this disease is they're perpetually in that state. So once again, we'll reiterate and then we can have another talk another time. But the stages of Alzheimer's, stage 1 is 0. There's no symptoms. Stage 2, only some forgetfulness. That's it. We don't even know that there's an issue, and they're not even going to the doctor till 3 and 4. And usually they're only going because they can't handle it behind closed doors because they're protecting their loved one. They're protecting them. So by the time they go in, we've got a real problem by the time they go in. So, well, I'll see what you were talking about earlier. If we have this beautiful tool that can help us assess, even when maybe they're not telling us everything up front, right?
Right.
But they
Right.
can help us assess by their breath, by their speech, by their hesitation, the little nuances that all of us can't always pick up on, but
Right.
AI can, you know, then, I'm really proud to have done this with y'all today and to bring this, the subject and us having the conversation, and hopefully people get excited about it. If it's in your family, if your dad has had it, your uncle's had it, your grandmother, your mother, that somewhere in the back of your mind, you're having the conversation. This is a podcast for you. If you were in the military many years exposed to things, this is a podcast for you. If you used to be an alcoholic, for many, many years, maybe you abused drugs, you're starting to have some forgetfulness, this is a podcast for you. If you do have a wife and you're noticing some changes, this is a podcast for you. This is why we need to start having the conversation, because I think it's gonna be a real game changer.
Yeah.
I want to hit on something here, because when you know behind the scene, you trust a little bit more, right? The way we build trust is by having an observation, which is the persistence and consistency of whatever it is that we don't trust. And in order to build trust in it, we have to observe it for a long period of time and see how it performs. So let's say,
Mhm.
for example, an alien ship lands in your backyard. Of course, you don't trust it at first, but it becomes friendly or becomes very, you know, um, uh,
Sure.
hostile to you, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
you want to be able to observe the alien ship for a little bit and then say, okay, how does it work? How does that alien ship work? Would it fly
Mhm.
off horizontally, or would it fly off break into the fence, right? How
Right,
does it fly off,
right.
Or what sort of mechanism is in there? Is there a weapon in there, or is there a bunch of sweets and donuts that I like to eat from?
Teddy bear.
Maybe that's what the alien came down to drop off some, donuts from me. And I'm rambling on about this because I want people to understand that if you want to build trust in your capability, or the whatever you're observing its capability, you want to understand the mechanism behind it. So you have to understand your own mechanism in order
Mhm.
to say, how do I trust myself that, when I lose my memory, these are some of the things that I have to understand, right? And
Right,
everything Laura just mentioned has lots of things, lots of familiarity with machine learning, because machine learning goes through a process, that internal
right,
process, under the hood kind of movement, the
right.
hidden layer of complexity, right?
Mm,
So
right.
human brain has the same complexity, just like machine learning. So if you know yourself
Okay.
and you want to build trust capability within yourself and say, like, if these things were going wrong persistently with patterns, I'll be able to early detect myself or help somebody else early detect, right?
Yes, yes.
So let me break that down quickly, right? I will talk about, starting point, which is the input point, and then the end point, which is the output point, right?
Yes.
And then we can go into talk about, like, other things that are born out of that input and output. So in machine learning, you will have an input and you will have this complex layer where all the calculation and algorithms and all the processing will happen. And then when you see that output is what you are fascinated with, right? You're fascinated with the fact that, oh wow, ChatGPT just wrote me an essay. Good
Yeah,
for you, ChatGPT.
yeah.
How much processing did you have to go behind that? I don't care. That essay has 300 words. I can submit that and get a C plus.
Agree,
Good for
agree,
you. Good for
agree.
me, right? The output is what matters. But as you develop more and more ChatGPT like observation, you see that, okay, I can see the hidden layer behind it. I know how to manipulate that prompt to get me an answer that is, you know, a B plus grade, A plus grade, because I'm going to turn to that in, but I want to make sure ChatGPT is able to give me that A plus level high school assignment, right, or MBA
Yes,
level assignment.
yes,
So we want to build trust in it, right?
yes.
And if you look
Agree.
at the human brain, the mechanism, the one of the things that Lori was saying, that it's in your brain, but it's not coming out of your mouth, right? But not all of them are Alzheimer. It's just that some of them are Alzheimer. But
Right.
now, if you have some inner connections, understanding the hidden layer of yourself, you would say, well, that actually sounds like more like an Alzheimer than just a uh, what is it called? There's a word for it. I'm not trying to use that on the podcast, but your brain is doing something that's, not, I
Mhm.
guess, what's the word for it? Like your
Well,
brain
it's
is just
your
Log,
cognitive function.
forgetful.
It's a cognitive no, it's a cognitive impairment.
yeah, and
Mhm,
our brain, the way it works is that it starts off with identifying, right?
mhm. Yes.
Just like machine learning has an input, our brain starts off with identifying, and the way it identifies, it's by collecting information like those 11 million bits per second from our five sensors, our
Mhm.
eyes, smell, taste, and tactile senses, which is the touch senses, and your auditory senses, right? So there's 11 million bits per second that you have coming in. It's helping you to identify once the data is processed in the back of your brain, and then it goes through a process of labeling. And that process of labeling is based on your language words or your previous experience or your previous data that has some weight behind it. As in, you might forget somebody's face, right? But if you see that person over and over, as in you see a celebrity over and over on TV, you get to know that face by labeling it with names or status of that celebrity or just knowing what movie that person was in, right? It's because the exposure has enabled you to label that person over and over. So a brain does that way too many times in per second, as in it goes through the process of identify and label. Because if it doesn't have the labeling capability where the skip actually happens, is that your brain is saying, I identified, but I cannot label it correctly. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just that you're not familiar with it that much, but
Right.
sometimes it is a problem that you're not actually labeling correctly anything. You're supposed to be actually having that labeling. As in, you walk outside, you should know there's a car on the road, but you're not
Right.
labeling that car as a car. You're labeling that car as a horse buggy.
Mhm. Right.
Stupid analogy, but the point is you're labeling things incorrectly
Right.
because what you're identifying and labeling does, it helps you with your decision making,
Right.
right?
I
That decision is
agree.
the output that everybody will observe and see. So what output is either that capability of doctors to see like, oh, this person is slurring a little bit more than somebody else. It might be that he's drunk right now, or it might be that he's having a stroke, or he's probably having early symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, right?
Or it's always blamed on over medication, but yes, go ahead. Yes. All the
And
time, but anyway, go ahead. Yeah, but yeah.
so this is the process, right? This is the
Sure,
ability to say, like, this is what we do on a daily basis, just those three things over and over. And I mean that, like, when I say 11 million bits per second, we make 35,000 decisions a day using those 11 million bits per second.
wow.
35,000 decisions. Anytime there's a neuron movement, anytime the neuron fires, is a single decision for you because
Wow.
your neuron is generating a thought, your neuron is generating an action that is physical. But even if it's not physical, you're laying there. There's a vascular movement that's happening within your body, your breathing patterns. All these
Mhm.
are all happening automatically. You don't have to really put a lot of effort into making those decisions, but you do make decisions. And once you start recognizing a pattern in your decisions, because it's mislabeled majority of the time, or more than what it used to be, you have to
Mhm.
start detecting the capability that your brain has been built with for hundreds of thousands of millions of years. Right
Mhm.
now, it's miscalculating. It's not able to label things correctly, and it's having wrong decision making, as in walking outside of the house with no clothes on and not
Mhm.
even realizing that you have no clothes on because your sensors are not identifying and labeling that correctly as whatever it is supposed to be labeled as.
Right, right,
And
right.
I'm going to stop right there because I think we're running almost into an hour. And we learned so much. This is
This has been great.
insane.
Like I said, this has really been great. Like I said, I'm excited that you guys even wanted to do this. I think it's a great conversation, and I think it deserves some more conversation.
Absolutely. Lucky?
Well, again, thank you for educating us and bringing us awareness to this disease. Thank you. I just feel like I want to learn so much more, and now I want to do research, and you've just now you've kind of poked the giant a little bit or the demon in me. I want to know more, and so we'd
Yeah.
love to have you back. Maybe we can decide on maybe focusing in on one thing or another. Maybe we can do some more research on what AI, or maybe in 3 to 6 months we can see what has changed because
Yeah.
AI is
Yes, agree.
thinking exponentially now, where before you thought AI and you just thought movies. Now you think AI,
Agree.
you think, "I'm gonna fix something, we're gonna make better decisions, we're gonna help people live better lives,"
Right.
and I'm looking forward to that.
No, I agree. And like I said, I hope that that's what we do. We're bringing awareness of this, that
Mhm.
we understand there's a lot of people that aren't excited about AI because they want their kids to still do, college papers, and this is going to replace that, right? It's okay for us to have that conversation, but it's
Yeah.
also okay that we're saying, look, this can have a huge impact on the future of this wicked disease. So let's start having the conversation. And to Asif's point, I want to say this one more time. This is what you're saying. Don't be afraid of it. Recognize it. Let's start having the conversation. It's not that scary. Are there some pros to it? Absolutely. Are there some cons? Absolutely. It's not perfect. We even know that anyway, I'm not going to get into all that because we know that part of the issue is when all the information that's gathering is not always to like different ethnicities, things like that, So those are some things that we're not there yet, right? But that's okay. What the three of us are trying to say is let's have the conversation. Let's not be scared of it. Let's have the conversation and see what it can do. So thank y'all for having me so much. This is so much fun. I learned a lot.
Well, Lori, how do you feel about AI now? Like, is it exciting AyAyAyAi, or is it kind of like, let's do it AyAyAyAi?
Yes, it's definitely, let's do it again. AyAyAyAi, absolutely. Absolutely.
She did it. Yeah.
That was awesome.
So AyAyAyAi.
We're all AyAyAyAi together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank y'all so much. Good night.